in your country, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, he will be able to do something that Anbiya have been dreaming of, which is to establish the kingdom of God on earth. So Eid al-Zahra is a celebration of the beginning, the commencement of the imamah of our Imam. You know, we read about Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam al-Hassan. When we address Imam al-Hussein, we say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum. The 12th Imam is with you. If you want to know how you would have been with Ali ibn Abi Talib, ask yourself, what is your relationship with your Imam, your living Imam? So one side, one aspect of Eid al-Zahra is that it's a celebration of wilayah, that the torch of imamah has been passed and received by the final Imam of Ahlulbayt, the one who will establish justice. Secondly, there is an aspect of bara'ah that we remember on this day. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was martyred on the 10th of Muharram in the year 61 after the Hijrah, yes? And indeed there is no tragedy, there is no calamity that has transpired on earth that was more inhumane than this tragedy. This is why you find the traditions say that the women of Ahlul Bayt would not beautify themselves after the day of Ashura until the 9th of Rabiul Awal, 66 years after the Hijrah. So 5 years after Karbala, news reaches Al-Muhammad that one of the murderers of Imam al-Hussein has been killed. Umar ibn Sa'ad brought a lot of grief to the Ahlul Bayt. Umar ibn Sa'ad was one of the commanders of the army of Yazid on the day of Ashura. Umar ibn Sa'ad was the first one to shoot an arrow towards the camp of Imam al-Hussein. Umar ibn Sa'ad was the one who gave the order for the bodies of the shuhada to be crushed under the hooves of the horses. This is Umar ibn Sa'ad. Umar ibn Sa'ad was the one who told Harmala, hit the neck of Abdullah al-Radiyah. This man brought so much grief and agony to the family of the Prophet. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a sunnah that has never changed. And that is, the one who attacks the people of God on earth, Allah humiliates him in dunya even before akhirah. You find on the 9th of Rabiul Awal, 66 years after the Hijrah, 5 years after Karbala, Mukhtar ibn Ubaydillah al-Thaqafi kills Umar ibn Sa'ad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And there is something amazing about the revenge against the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. You know, brothers and sisters, Umar ibn Sa'ad, he gave the command, to sever the heads. And they paraded the heads of the family of Rasulullah all the way to Kufa. But there was one head that they wanted to expedite. And that is the head of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. They sent Khuli ibn Yazid al-Asbahi. He carries the head of Imam al-Hussein and he takes the head of the Imam to Kufa, to the palace of Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad, when they take the head to him, he was eating. And he started to poke at the severed head of the Imam. Many years later, Imam Zainul Abidin is in Medina. Mukhtar ibn Ubaydillah al-Thaqafi, many years later, he kills Ibn Ziyad. And he sends the severed head of Ibn Ziyad to Imam Zainul Abidin, and Imam receives the news when he's eating. Imam Zainul Abidin, he goes down into sujood. and he praises Allah for His justice. Imam says, there was a day when they sent the head of my father to Ibn Ziyad while he was eating. Look at the poetic justice of Allah, that the head of this zalim is brought to me on a day like this while I'm eating. But when the head of my father was presented to him, he was poking the lips of Abi Abdullah. But when Allah destroys his enemies, I know that this is the grace of Allah, and I perform a sajda in gratitude to Allah Azza wa Jal. You find that on the 9th of Rabiul Awal, when Umar ibn Sa'ad was murdered, this was the first time in 5 years that Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam smiled. 5 years, no smiling. 5 years, the Hashimiyat would not put kuhul on their eyes. But this was a day of relief for them, because the enemies of Allah were punished. We call this day Farhatul Zahra, which literally means the happiness, the joy of Zahra. But do you know what brings more joy to Fatimatul Zahra, even more joy than the defeat of the enemies of Ahlulbayt? It's for you and I to learn how to defeat an-nafsul ammara. Allah has external enemies throughout the earth. But some of us, the worst enemies that we have in our lives is not external. It's the nafs that you have that encourages you to defy Allah Azza wa Jalla.